Hi, thanks for joining me in the garage today. What we're talking about in this blog is everybody's favorite subject, stretching. If you think you noticed a little bit of sarcasm in my voice, you may have, because as a registered massage therapist, I've noticed that people don't like to stretch, or at least they don't stretch. I can only assume why, but I can tell you that the most frequently asked questions I get are: when's the best time to stretch? Should I stretch before or after a workout? And how long do I stretch for? Well, there's quite a few variables when it comes down to stretching, so what I'm going to do to simplify it is talk about the average person that goes to the gym maybe 3 to 5 times a week or less. I'm not talking about elite athletes, I'm not talking about people who are injured, and I'm not talking about sport-specific stretching. Yes, there are obviously a lot of similarities because we are talking about stretching after all. However, there are some differences, so they fall into different categories. So, the most effective time to stretch any muscle is, are you ready? When the muscle's been warmed up. Pretty simple. When the muscle's been warmed up, you can stretch it easier, you can get more length out of the muscle when you stretch it, and you can do it a lot safer with less chance of injury. That's all. Next question. It's more important to warm up before you work out. For instance, if you're going to work out in your chest and you're going to start with bench press, what you should actually do is about 15 reps of a very light weight, even if it's just the bar, because several things happen when you warm up. And the first thing that happens is your brain sends a signal to the muscles involved telling them to fire, to take action and lift that weight. In essence, you're opening up a channel through your central nervous system. So from your brain through the nerves to the muscle. Well, when you lift heavier weight, you have to recruit more muscle fibers. And if that channel's already open, you're gonna have an easier time doing it. Some of the other things that happen is you get more blood flow through the muscles, getting them ready to take on a heavier workload. And the same thing with your joints. The synovial fluid in the joint starts moving and lubricating the joint, again, preparing it to take on a heavier workload with less chance of injury. It's also important not to stretch for length before you work out. If you stretch for length before you work out, what you're actually doing is decreasing the efficiency of the muscle you've stretched for that workout. It's most important to stretch after you work out to avoid injuries caused by muscle imbalances. About 70% of the people I see come to see me because of discomfort, pain, and injuries caused by muscle imbalances. So let me explain to you how this works. If you are working out on your arms, for instance, and you're doing curls, what you're doing when you're doing curls is you're contracting these muscles over and over again. Well, when you're contracting these muscles, what you're doing is you're making them shorter. You're bringing the ends of the muscle closer together. Well, after you work out, if you don't stretch, your body will hang on to some of that muscle shortness. And over a period of time of not stretching, the muscle gets shorter and shorter and shorter until there's an imbalance. So let me explain to you how the injuries occur from the imbalances. We've all seen that guy that walks around the gym like he's got a pickle up his butt, right? Well, look at him. He's way out of posture. This is proper posture, and this is improper posture. So how did he get like this? Well, let's start with a couple of the muscles. For instance, his chest muscles, pectoralis major and minor. Pectoralis major and minor are obviously in a shortened position. And because they are in a shortened position, just like any other muscles in a shortened position, the opposite muscles have to be in a lengthened position. So in this case, it's rhomboids, mid-traps, and muscles of the rotator cuff, the external rotators. All right, so what's going on here is they're lengthened and they don't like it. So what they do is they lock up so they don't get any longer as the chest tries to get shorter. And they lock up by developing knots and trigger points. And that's where the discomfort and some of the pain starts. From a mechanical standpoint, let's talk about the injuries. Pectoralis major attaches to the lateral lip of the bicipital groove, okay? This is where I can use some of my Halloween decorations. They're not perfect, but they're lifelike enough for us. So this is a humerus, this is the head of the humerus, and this is the bicipital groove. Okay, it's a groove in the bone for the long head of biceps tendon to go through. The lateral lip is the outside here. Okay, so the chest, pectoralis major, attaches there. Well, when it shortens, because the joint movement is here, what it does is it pulls the humerus internally. So it internally rotates the humerus. Pectoralis minor starts at ribs 3, 4, and 5 and attaches to the coracoid process. Now the coracoid process is part of the scapula right here. It's on the anterior side of the scapula, and the scapula, okay, shoulder blade, is part of the shoulder joint. This is the glenoid cavity, so that's the socket of the shoulder joint. So this is the ball and this is the socket. Okay, it's actually one of the weakest joints in the body, one of the most injured joints in the body as well. So what happens when pectoralis minor shortens, it pulls at the coracoid process and it anteriorly tips the scapula. So what you have is the scapula tipping anteriorly and the humerus internally rotating. So as you can tell, that's misaligned. And because it's misaligned, it causes excess wear and tear on the shoulder joint. That leads to inflammation such as tendinitis or bursitis, stretching of the joint capsule, and that just leads to all sorts of other rotator cuff injuries. So that's why it's so important to stretch after every workout to maintain proper balance between the muscles, which maintains proper posture. Yes, your bones hold you in proper posture, but the muscles have to hold your bones in place. It's a symbiotic relationship. Again, there are some variables when determining the amount of time you should stretch your muscles for. For instance, the muscle itself, some muscles are just inherently more difficult to stretch than others. The health of the muscle or the fascial tissue surrounding the muscle, whether or not that muscle will slide through that fascial tissue easily, and even the age of the person stretching. Someone who is healthy and 18 is certainly going to have a lot easier time stretching than someone who is 68, 48, or even 28 for that matter. But as a general rule of thumb, you should stretch each muscle for 30 to 60 seconds 3 times. Unos, dos, tres. I'm actually practicing for Cuba. I'm leaving in the morning. But anyway, when you stretch each muscle 3 times. So if I was to stretch my chest, for instance, I'd find a door frame or a squat rack like this, and I'd use my elbow to stabilize, and I just gently stretch through. Now, I'm not gonna force a stretch. I'm not gonna feel pain. I just wanna feel nice muscles stretch, okay? If you force your stretch, what you're actually gonna do is activate a muscle reflex that will kick in and fight the stretch, and you won't get a quality stretch, if any at all, and you could lead to injury. So after each stretch, also notice too that when I'm done, I'm gently sliding out of the stretch. I'm not letting the muscle snap back into place like a rubber band. If you could do that, you could develop a muscle spasm or again, some sort of injury. So I hope this answers some of your questions. Thanks for joining me in my garage. I'll see you next time. In the meantime, stay fit and be healthy.